professionals. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Hans Ekman.
Thank you, Amy. And I want everyone to take a chance to reach out to the wonderful McGregor staff and the amazing work they've done pulling this presentation, pulling this conference together under, again, some unusual and unfortunate circumstances. I know you have attended a lot of sessions. You've heard some great tips. You've heard some amazing keynotes. And there's just so many things you want to try. There's so many new techniques, new approaches, new ways of thinking. Well, I'm here to kind of do the opposite today. I'm going to try and teach you how to actually do less. Because let's face it, I don't like work. I don't like repetition. I don't like manual things. So I try and go out of my way to simplify and automate as much of my life as possible so it leaves more time for the things I care about. And that's really going to be the focus that we're going to go through today. As always, we have to start with ground rules, which is this session is for you. This is information that has worked for me, some tips and insights that I want to share with you. But I already know this stuff. I want you to challenge it. I want you to see how would it apply to your particular area? How can you make it your own? So use the chat to communicate and discuss on the side. Use the Q&A. I have my wonderful friend, Coach Vic, helping me moderate in the background. So he's going to pull any of your questions, any of your comments into the discussion as we go along. So I've invited him to jump in anytime, just in case there's something that I might have missed as we're going by. As always, no animals were harmed during the creation of this presentation either, but I really do hope you will support your local pet rescue groups. So we've got a challenge. There just never seems to be enough time to get done all the things we want to get done. When you look at a 2020 study from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, you can see the breakout of how our time is done for people who are employed full-time. But when you look at this, does this actually feel like your day? So if you think this pretty much represents your day, go ahead and post a thumbs up in the chat. If you're looking at it and going, no, there's not enough red work hours in the day or other things, use the thumbs down and kind of say, how well does this indicate your typical breakout of a day? I'm seeing a lot of people going, yeah, this couldn't possibly be right. Okay, well, let's see how that is. So what I want you to do is grab a scratch paper, maybe a magic marker to write on your desk or your monitor. I'm sure you won't need them again later. And how are you allocating your day? So just quick and easy, do some, tablecloth, napkin math about how many hours of sleep do you get? How much time do you spend eating? Generally, on average, during a workday, a weekday, how much time do you spend working? What about pure leisure time? What about time dedicated to caring for family or doing family things like cooking, serving dinner, getting kids dressed for school, helping with homework? And are there other major categories? So what I want you to do is take a minute or two and just kind of write down to the side, how are you spending your time? As you start getting the rough numbers, I want you to quickly add them up, pull up the calculator on your computer or phone, and subtract them from 24. And then when you come up with an answer, what I want you to report is, out of 24 hours, how much time is not already allocated to one of these major events? Go ahead and post in. So Christina does the Des Moines math where she added in more than 24 hours, which is certainly how it feels. Tiffany's got maybe 3 hours available to get everything else done. Who else has one? We've got some zeros. We've got some negatives. Isn't it amazing that when we start breaking out how much time we feel we're putting towards these things, we're getting actually more time than we are able to put in. We're getting these negative hours where every day we are putting in more time than we actually have, which means somewhere, maybe it's a reporting thing, but it feels like we're over allocated. We don't have any time. Mary's got 2 hours to work with. And when you think about how much we might need to do in that 2 hours. So if you are eating and working at the same time, don't double count it. Count it in one category. I always say work comes first. And so I would subtract that from the eating category. But however you want to calculate it. So keeping this in mind, what I want you to focus in on is 2 things as we go through this. And it's a question I want you to keep asking in the back of your mind. How am I going to get the most value out of the time? And if I had 0 time or negative time, what am I going to do about that so I actually have time to do the things that need to get done or that I even want to get done? Because sadly, none of us have a time machine. We can't add more hours into the day. We can't manufacture more time. We can't constrict work into a smaller block, but doing the same amount of hours of work. No matter how many times our agile purists tell us, if you just break it into smaller time boxes, you get more work done. Well, not statistically, you sure don't, but we can argue about that another time. So taking this in mind, I want to give you some tips or tricks and general themes on making more of that time available by taking out some of the work, streamlining and taking things out. So the very first thing I want you to do is stop doing stupid tasks. And I don't know a better way of doing it. We need to focus all of our time and energy on the activities that generate a high return on investment, not just high value, because cost figures into it. I know if I hired a yard keeper, a cook, a housekeeper, I wouldn't have to do any of those things. But the problem is I would have to take money away from other things, other hobbies, other toys that I'm not willing to sacrifice. So instead, I have to do the work. And I want you to go back to what Kenny Rogers tried so hard to teach us. And that is, with every moment in our day, with every task and activity we tackle, it is up to us whether that is going to be a winner and have value, or whether it's going to be a loser and just suck more of that time away from us. So to start things off, we're going to play a game. We're going to have a little contest here. And I want to share a challenge from my life. And it was one of those moments that when I realized it and learned this lesson, things have been so much better. So the first thing is, we have a rule that I agree to 100%, that there should be no clutter. Clutter in common areas is just a bad thing. So what I want you to do is to use this no clutter allowed rule and judge if there's 4 different areas of clutter that we have to fix, which order should we do this in? So the first area, this is a small table. It's actually an old kitchen table that we have converted into kind of an end table that sits in our family room right next to the stairs. And naturally, any flat surface next to any stairs or place where people go by is going to collect stuff. So the first one is the table in the family room. The second area is just next to it on the other side of the walkway, which is an end table next to the couch. So we have 2 identical end tables on each side of the couch. This one is more central to the room. So looking at these items, looking at their location. Next, this is our kitchen table. So it's in a little sunroom attached to our kitchen around the corner from the sunroom, like many of your homes. And thinking not about the stuff in the background, but the table and chairs itself, how does this rate? And then the last one next to the kitchen table, between the kitchen table and the kitchen itself, we have a high top table that my parents gave to us. And right now it's got some stuff sitting on it. It's got stuff sitting on the chair. Actually, as you can tell, this was left over from my last weekend at Dragon Con. So what I want you to look at is what order, following the no clutter rule, would you do these in? And as Grace has just demonstrated, I want you to put the letters in the order in which you would tackle these projects. So I'm going to give you a minute to think about that and go ahead and post your answers, because I have a prize for whoever wins. Steve says burn the house down. I appreciate it. That would solve the no clutter, but it would not solve the I stay married rule. So not going with that one. I see a lot of DCBAs, DBACs. Maria went with the example, ABCD. That would work. ACBD. All right, fantastic. DCBA, DCAB really seem to be some common, some starting with A. So let's look at the answer. And then we'll go back into the chat, and everyone who got the order correct, I will either reach out to you or I want you to reach out to me, because I will send you a electronic prize after the fact. Since I don't have prizes I can hand you through the camera. So the correct order for putting these away is DA and optionally BC. And a lot of you right now probably want to argue with me. And I was with you because I have argued and fought this rule for years, because I didn't like the way this rule seemed to have a double standard. And that double standard seems to be, these items at the top, D and A, have to be taken care of, but these other items aren't clutter. And so our first lesson is the only way we can identify ROI is if we know what value is. We know what the rules are. We need to find the rules. So the first rule of understanding clutter is that it's anything that's sitting out of place, which means anything that has a rightful or an expected home somewhere else or in something else. The second and more important rule is clutter is only things that aren't my wife's. It's not a double standard. It's part of the rules of the standard. The top item, D, is the items that I brought to Dragon Con last weekend and I haven't put away in the last 3 days. The table items are all things I need to either bring upstairs or bring downstairs. It's all my junk that is stuff that needs to be put away. The end table to the couch is all of her stuff. It's the things she uses when she's sitting on the couch and enjoying things. So that isn't clutter because it has a purpose. It's not sitting out of place. It is sitting close and near where she needs it. The reason this ranks higher than C is you can see there's some empty containers. So if I've cleared all of my clutter, throwing away open trash is borderline a clutter rule. I'm allowed to touch that stuff. But the kitchen table is where she works when she's not in the school. So it's her laptop, it's her hair tinsel, it's her project files and backpack and work bag for work, because that is her temporary workspace. She doesn't want to be set up in an office or a room. She wants it where it's bright and airy and convenient, and the dogs are there with her. So we have to understand what's valuable before we can know what goes on. So as Grace says, it still feels like clutter. I absolutely agree. But here's our problem. We can't fix everything. Look at how many of you said you had negative hours in the door. It's because you're cleaning up all 4 of these areas when we only get credit for 2. How many times are you doing work in your personal life or your professional life that just doesn't need to be done? If you want to do it for you, then it has intrinsic value. But don't do things because you think they have value. Do them because you know they have a return on investment. And when you tackle those items, I don't want you to let perfect ruin good enough. And this is where the law of diminishing returns comes in. The last part of a project, the last part of a work, the last part of editing always takes more effort than the previous parts. And if you actually look at it as a graph, we're not getting an effective use out of our time. So there's two things we need to do. We need to stop trying to make things perfect. We need to know when to stop. I could have spent another 20, 40, 80 hours editing, looking for different images, changing things, second guessing what I was putting in, the layout, all of this stuff. But finally I decided I have other things to do. It's good enough. I've got to stop here because it's never going to be perfect. And I've hit the point of diminished returns. So the first thing I want you to ask yourself as you're doing work is how much of your time are you spending where your productivity, your extra effort is starting to not get an increasing value for the time you're spending. It's okay, but we want to make sure and never pass our optimal maximum yield. And in this case, the only time when I need to go past this and spend 10, 20, 50% of my total effort on that last 10% to make it perfect is if the perfect really does matter in that instance. If the risk or the ROI is so high, or the person I'm presenting to is such a stickler for formatting and consistent fonts, then maybe it's worth the effort. But I don't want you to put in that effort, that wasted effort, because you're wasting your talent. You're wasting your time. We need to cut back and we need to just ship it. Look at how many products are brought to market and how many recalls there are in the first year. They certainly didn't care about getting it perfect. They're using us as beta testers. Some of you may be cringing now because you know you're shipping software with the customers being your QA test group because you cut QA and you cut your BA time because the PM said it wasn't in the schedule. Sorry, had to pick on PMs a minute there. We need to cut out that wasted effort and just realize what is good enough. The next step, other than focusing in on those items that are high value, is I want you to really focus in on removing as much waste as possible. And so when I think back to a lot of our childhoods, and I'm pushing a few more years than many of you, there were so many things that I thought would be important in later life, that I thought would be pivotal, that I really took to heart and tried to learn, like stop, drop, and roll. I've never had to survive quicksand. I've never even seen quicksand. I used to practice in the living room, jumping around as if the floor is lava. I have never been close to lava. Like all these things that I did just have had diminished returns. They're waste. I lost all that time. Fortunately, I have never been on fire. I have always been able to run away from the flames before they actually started burning me. So, as Steve mentions, if the floor is lava is a fun game and it breaks enjoyment, then it has value. But if not, if it's not really practice for what you're doing, it's waste. But we gotta be careful not to cut too much out of our lives. And as you all got into the time estimation, think about how when you started seeing your numbers approach 24 hours, when you started calculating and it was negative because you had already allocated more than a workday, we tend to cut out the things that are most important. And we need to stop doing that because you're cutting your life expectancy. You're selling yourself short. And we're going to actually play a game to demonstrate why that is so critical. I want you, please take this. If you only hear one thing, do not cut out your time bathing, sleeping, learning, relaxing, and foremost, please don't stop bathing. Bathing is really, really important. So please keep bathing. I want to take a minute and tell you a story about a buddy of mine named Joe. Joe and I worked together for a little while in a consulting company when we were trying to build out a few new startup ideas, a few new business plans. And he actually had an entire career, was retired from the freight forwarding business. And to simplify what freight forwarding is, you build stuff overseas or you build stuff in a factory, you put it into a container. That container has to get to some place where it can be delivered to a location where people can buy it, whether it's a warehouse or a store. Joe's responsibility was he worked for a very large, we'll call him a big box retailer, who did a lot of manufacturing and a lot of product purchases from Asia. And it was his team's job to be on site working with that company's logistics to help them the minute the goods and the container got to the port, to get that shipment across from the port, across the ocean, into one of several ports in the US where it could either be trucked to local warehouses, trucked to other more distant warehouses, or put on mixed mode transit, put on a train where it would then be offloaded and moved to warehouses, broken down and sent to the individual stores. And there's a real open secret in freight forwarding that a lot of people kind of are aware of, but they really just don't want to acknowledge. And that is, I know exactly when that container is at port, and I know the exact day when it leaves port. Generally, the projected day to leave is the same, and I know when it is in port, and I know 1 week before it arrives when it's going to be in port. The mystery and the problem is the ocean freight carriers will never, ever give updates while in transit. They give an estimated date, but it isn't until they absolutely know that they are less than 7 days out of port that they will notify and update the tracking information to tell everyone that it will be in port on this day. Well, why does that matter? It matters because the people who are depending on restocking warehouses and stores need to then get that container out of port, get it to a warehouse to fill the open orders. And the challenge Joe's team had was every single day, they were overwhelmed with the client's request to know, I looked at this tracking information. Where is it? I looked at this tracking information. When is it going to arrive? Do we have the transit booked? What's happening? When will it arrive in the warehouse? And it got so bad that the senior logistics manager for this company called Joe into the office and basically said, if you don't get your crew straightened out and improve your quality, you all are fired and I'm going with a different logistics company. And Joe was really surprised because he knew they were doing everything right. They were actually doing a fabulous job. Why did everyone hate them? And what Joe did is he gathered his team, discussed it with them a little bit, and found out that it wasn't a delivery problem. It was an expectation problem. So what Joe did was he told his staff to come in 1 hour ahead of schedule every single day. I want you to come in, run the tracking report, paste in whatever the latest update is. But I don't want you to stop there because that's exactly what our client is doing. I want you to tell them what you are doing about each shipment. I want you to update it anytime there's a change. So if it's at port, have you already scheduled and is it going to be picked up? If you know when it's going to arrive, did you already schedule a short haul trucker to go pick it up? If it's in transit, it's in that big red circle with no updates. We can't do anything. Tell them that you're monitoring it for exceptions, meaning you know the date that it's delivered. And I didn't put dates in this example because it would be confusing, but we generally know the expected date. And if I don't get a confirmed date 7 days out, I know we have a problem. Or if I get a delivery exception, or the ship sails and then they report it's still in port, now I've got to route it on a different ship. Within 2 weeks of simply telling people what they were doing to solve these problems ahead of time, just telling them what they were already doing, their support calls dropped in half. And the senior manager said it was the best business performance turnaround he had ever seen. And to this day, Joe is still laughing because all he did was add one more column to the report saying, this is how I've got you covered. And I want you to think about this because this is a great task and a great way of approaching micromanagers. Don't make them ask you for status, ask you what's going on. Proactively overwhelm them with information that you can report quickly and easily, because then you look busy, you look in control, and that's really most of what they're looking for. So consider finding these little Joe reports in your day, because it could take away a lot of those wasted chats, emails, calls, just asking you for status. So the next one, I want to give you a little bit of warning. If you have a heart condition, you faint easily, I want you to settle down. I want you to take a few deep breaths, because what I'm about to say is absolute IT heresy. There is a new level of Dante's Inferno for IT professionals who say this. I want you to stop answering emails. Not only that, I want you to stop reading most of your emails. And I'm going to break this down for you. So the first thing is, you have to decide what's important. And you have to realize a lot of our conversations are not that important. A lot of the emails are standard and reports and are stupid. And Grace has already embraced that. She has seen the Outlook light, and she's using filters, and she's doing this already. So gold star to Grace. I want you to practice Ohio. Only handle it once. When something comes in, if there's any way to get it done, either finish it, decide you're not going to do anything about it, throw it away or delegate it, do it and get rid of it. Don't let it occupy any more of your mind, and don't let that work build up. Just get rid of it if you possibly can. Everything else, I want you to filter based on importance, and I want you to filter out so that you're only seeing those things that are most important. Google Gmail is trying to put in some more readability filters and use AI to determine what's most important to you. There's some plugins and tools you can try. Simpletivity is a website that I watch often that has a lot of reviews on these tools and tips. I highly recommend it. So after you filtered this, you may be worried that you missed something important. Believe me, if you miss something important, you're going to hear about it. They are going to contact you. They're going to follow up. They're going to push this to the top of your inbox to remind you. So when you look at it, I fall into the fallacy and the lie that I'm ever going to do the to-do items in my to-do folder. I went ahead and mock this up, and there are 65 items that have been sitting there for anywhere from 1 day to 2 years that I haven't even looked at in that period. Clearly, they weren't important, and I should probably just delete them. We have an email distribution list that is basically for whoever's getting a commission on reply alls, where they send out a question to everybody in the research group, and everybody responds because they don't want to look up the information. I could easily get 100 of these a day. The only reason that folder isn't bigger is because of our automatic archival policy that deletes older emails, or that thing could be in the tens of thousands now. Reporting is all those standard reports that you get. And I actually have a subfolder that says if the report is about me or a select report that I need to read, it stays in the inbox. It skips that filter so that there's an exception. So for example, when there's a satisfaction survey filled out, I don't care how the surveys are doing. But if the survey is about me, it stays in the inbox. I read it in Ohio. I throw it in reporting. I spend no more than 10 seconds on it. And that's just to say, okay, that call went well, or I got a low score. I better contact the rep because they're going to be calling me. And then my read later is those things that if I'm ever bored or need something interested, maybe I'll go back, but no. And, AJ mentions the dreaded reply all. Never reply all if you can avoid it, unless everybody or almost everybody needs to hear it. I actually keep a list of people that needlessly reply all so that I never hire them on my team and never promote them. And I'm not lying about that. That is how much I hate reply all. We don't even have to look at our work lives. With great age comes great medication. And I found it, even with just vitamins, it was taking too long to open every bottle, to pick out the pills, to make sure I wasn't missing anything. So instead, I got basically a super detailed pill sorter. I fill it once a month. I dump it into my hand every morning, swallow it down, and I know I got everything I needed. So now I've turned what was a 4-minute process down to less than 10 seconds per day. That means I'm saving 100 minutes per month. Now that's not a lot, but it's time that's now mine. A next one I want to illustrate because we need to do work in the sequence when it's most appropriate. So the first thing is, when you think about loading your dishwasher, we're generally grabbing a plate, the silverware, a bowl, whatever, we're putting it in. And then when I take it out, I have to start grabbing each item and putting it back with its friends. My bowl wants to be with its little bowly friends. My plates want to be with the plate cult. My silverware want to be in the silverware cliques in their own individual areas of the silverware divider. They don't like to mix. I'm trying to promote diversity, but they insist on being isolated. It takes a lot of time to grab and sort those items on the way out because I'm effectively repeating the same process for almost each and every item. But what if I didn't? When I'm putting items away, I'm already dealing with individual items. I already have to go through that process. What if I group like items together? What if I put the forks that go together with the forks that go together? So now I can grab a bunch and do them all at once. I can grab all my big spoons and my little spoons and my wife's forks because yes, we have different forks. She likes the scoopy ones. I like long tines. This is why we're happily married. We have our own forks. It's okay. So think about, when are you processing? When are you doing some of these tricks? If you can process on the way in, sometimes it's better than a way out. And how this translates to our work is every time I'm writing up notes for a call or notes for a meeting, if it's on a similar topic, I copy those into a OneNote library of topics by area, by type of information, so that I have that available. And next time I can copy and paste it in, delete or edit what I don't need, and move forward from there. I do the same thing with common links. I don't have to go to my bookmarks and constantly find the links, find the references. I have them all together. They're all grouped into logical categories, and then I can just move them around. So what used to take anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour to write up meeting notes, I can now do usually in about 5 to 10 minutes. I've even used the templates and tools within Outlook. You can take and save any piece of text as auto text. So how many of you really hate it when you're waiting for people to show up on a call because their reminder didn't go off, or maybe they ignored it, or it's passed and it's buried? So 2 minutes before every meeting, I have a reply all that I've already queued up earlier in the day. I paste in the meeting is open text and don't join multiple ways or you'll create another echo. I paste this in every single time, save it into drafts, and then 2 minutes before the meeting starts, I send it as a message to remind people. And this has done wonders, especially with client calls, by preventing me from sitting there. They're on a different bridge. They forgot about the meeting. The rep forgot to tell me it was canceled. It's so easy to do this, and it only takes me 2 clicks to implement this. So think about these little places where you can do something once and reuse it often. Yes, once I got the handle of OneNote, it's been a savior. So now that we've gotten waste, I want to steal a concept from Kanban. One of the great ways of moving work through a system. And we could spend an hour or two talking about Kanban. I'm not going to do that here. I'm happy to do other presentations on Kanban. But there's really a key here. Work in progress has no value. It's only the completed work that has value. Right now, all the slides that you haven't seen are providing no value, no enrichment to you whatsoever. It isn't until you see them, we talk about them, you ask questions, you respond to them in chat, that I know that that content has now maybe helped you or reinforced something that you're doing right or shown you a different way of looking at things. So I want you to find ways of reducing work in progress. And one of the primary reasons is switching costs. Now, being honest, I want anywhere, I love the Schrodinger slides, thank you, AJ. I want anybody who thinks that they're good at multitasking, I want you to give a thumbs up or a cheer or something in the chat. Everyone else will just hold back, but anyone who thinks they're pretty good at multitasking, I'm expecting some millennials here to answer this. Got to dig on the millennials. Okay, Amy says, Heather says, switch tasking, absolutely, Jimmy, yep. Women are supposed to be great multitaskers. Mandy, excellent. Jen, there's no such thing. Well, let's look at a few studies. So, there was a study by David Strayer in 2012, and he was actually watching people run stop signs while they were texting on their phone, and he started wondering about how effectively you really could multitask. And what he saw was almost everyone that ran the stop sign was looking down at their phone and never noticed a stop sign. He then set up studies and found that only 2% of the population can effectively multitask. So for those of you that gave a thumbs up, if you're in that 2%, that's awesome. You are in a very small minority. For everyone else, I might suggest that you're falling victim to the switching cost fallacy. In another study, they found that if you're productively working and you look at your phone, you see a message, there's something that distracts you, it can take 25 minutes or longer before you can recover and get to that same level of productivity. I've seen this study as low as 15 minutes, but the most recent study had it pegged at 25. So it means, think about your day, and that 25 minutes of work after a disruption, you aren't even putting your best work into it. It is so bad that if you were trying to significantly multitask, do many different things at once, like right now, those of you that are finishing your work, you're on your phone, you're chatting, you're tuning me out for the most part. Your IQ is temporarily dropping 3 times more than if you had been smoking marijuana. Now, if you're multitasking and smoking marijuana, I don't know how much that's setting you back, but just consider the fact that you're basically working stoned. That's how low you're processing, how much of an impact this is having. So I want you to consider spending more dedicated time. And in that, I want you to block out time in your calendar. So instead of just blocking time for specific activities, continue to do that. I want you to block out themes for work. I want you to block out blocks where you're going to get types of work done. And then when that block comes, you can translate it into the tasks or activities. I want you to block out focus time for admin, for email, for other things you might want to do that are going to be a high switch. Go ahead and plan on just switching, use Ohio, and get through them as fast as possible. Also, when you're in this focus time, when you're in this block, I want you to limit or eliminate interruptions. I want you to turn off or put Teams on Do Not Disturb. I want you to mute your cell phone. If it's on a charger or a stand, turn it around. Right now, my cell phone is on mute because I know it's probably blowing up with text messages in the background, but I don't want to be distracted. I would be selling you short in your time here if I was looking down or worrying about my phone right now. You can block out open times for meetings. Now, the last piece, and probably the most important, is if you're moving a block of time where you intended to get work, you need to move it, don't delete it. If you delete it, you're throwing away that block of time that you had committed to getting work done. These are not placeholder blocks. These are focus times to get work done. So if you use it for something else, you have to make up that time elsewhere. Like I said, and AJ saying it, I am speaking IT heresy, not, blocking out time, being focused, not being interrupted and 100% available to people at all hours of the night, not reading and responding to emails. This is what we need to do to recover our lives and get the time for those things that are really important. So we're going to play a game. And again, this is going to be a prize. And if anyone gets, the first person who gets the right answer is also going to get a prize. We're going to use a pitcher of water to illustrate our work. So our whole goal is, our pitcher is the work demand that's coming to us. We have a cup that can offload a certain portion of that water into a cup. So our pitcher, for our non-US friends, is 1 liter. I believe in metric 2. Your cup holds 200 milliliters. So basically 5 cups to a pitcher if you went to public school, like I did. Every week, you're going to be able to fill your cup, but the pitcher is going to refill with 230 milliliters added to the pitcher. Your challenge, and the answer I'm looking for, is how do you get the pitcher empty using only the glass to fill and siphon off the water? So when you think I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to come up with this, or when we get the first answer. If you have questions, pop them into the chat. I'm happy for clarifications. But how can you drain the 1 liter pitcher 200 milliliters at a time? This game is brought to you by lemons. Lemons, great for water, great for lemonade. Pick some up at your local store today. We'll now return you to the game and your calculations. Excellent. So Robert is saying, could you use the thermostat and get something else to pull the water off? Nope. Could you drink and exceed the 200 milliliter capacity? Nope. Famerica, met her last night. Wonderful. Could you get more cups? So as a long-term solution, could you add capacity as a way of draining it down? Yes, but not for the answer for this. Steve Jones says cheat and use a straw. AJ wants to resort to stopping the person from filling the pitcher. All right, well, I'm going to pause it there because unfortunately we did not have all of the answers. We did not have a winner here because the truth is this is a brain teaser you can't win. If I can only fit in 200 milliliters per week of demand that I can take on, I can drain that down in 5 weeks if the demand wasn't refilling. But just like our lives, we're adding more demand than our capacity can fulfill. We are always falling further and further behind. And in this case, we will start spilling water on the table by week 8. So in 2 months of trying to finish our backlog, trying to keep up with this work, we're going to end up running out of backlog capacity. And thanks to AJ for the Kobayashi Maru of effort tracking. Yes, hack the game so that you can actually win. And so, wait a minute, Hans, you're playing an evil trick on us. Am I? Or am I calling out some of you for something you're doing every day? Am I calling out the fact that you're constantly putting in and trying to fill that backlog? Instead of accepting 200 milliliters, you're going and taking another cup out of your personal life and trying to drink 400 milliliters to build down that backlog. You're sacrificing your life to try and fill an unreasonable backlog. And that's what I want you to stop. You are only being paid to get 1 cup done per week. You need to decide how big that cup is that's fair for the company, fair for your career, and fair for your compensation. That cup is not unlimited. And if you are in a team with a boss where that cup is unlimited, you need to talk to Leslie to update your resume and your LinkedIn profile and get somewhere else. I learned this rule way back when I was doing consulting. And there was a development company who did medical home healthcare software, and they wanted to build a new tablet application for home healthcare at the time. They needed to put together basically a feasibility requirements. What will it need to do? How will it work? What will it cost? All of these things. After the first week of meetings, I realized we had a serious problem, and I went back to my boss. They had originally estimated it would take 90 days to put together the requirements, the business plan, the conceptual models for this. But they wanted to get it done in 60 days. And because of our wonderfully low consulting rate, they were only willing to pay for 60 days. And I laid out my project schedule. I laid out the scope of work. I showed that graph, the variance, that there just was not enough time to get it done. And John gave me a shakabuku, a swift spiritual kick to the head that has forever changed my perspective and way of thinking. And this is the same as the hypnosis moment in Office Space. And he said, they are not paying you to deliver the final solution. They are renting you for no more than 40 hours per week for 60 days. They are only asking you or paying you for one glass worth of work. You need to show them what the work is. It is up to them whether or not they're going to add capacity, extend the deadline. It's going to be up to them whether they're going to pay more to get this work done. And so I delivered the best possible work I could in that time period. And they agreed. I delivered what I said I was going to deliver, not all of what they wanted, but they ended up accepting that it was good enough that they could move on to the next stage of estimating. And this is where, from that day forward, there are times when I put in extra hours. There's times where I will work weekends and other stuff, but I always try and move that block forward and offset it somewhere else. I'll take 2 hours and have a nice lunch or go shopping. I'll take a Friday afternoon off every other week. If I'm having to put in the extra time, I know what I'm being compensated for, and I offset that as well. So the next change I want you to make is to only work on the parts that you can actually influence. And that part is, so if there's something coming up in text I should respond to, feel free to jump in, Coach. Is we can't solve the world. We can't solve the universe, but we can think about what it is we're trying to solve and act locally. And this is where I really try and live the serenity poem. And that is, grant me the serenity to accept those things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the knowledge to tell the difference. I actually bought some little serenity coins, and I keep them on my desk, and I twirl them for fun and as a stim toy while I'm on long calls, because it helps keep me focused. But we really need to stop spending time and effort and energy on those things we can't change. And to help guide us on and know what are those things we should be doing, I want to borrow some lessons from my long coach and mentor, Dusty Rhodes. Nope, not the wrestler. It's actually this guy. He has severe ADD. He has had so many different careers. He specialized in product marketing and running large corporations and transitioning startups and companies to sell. And he introduced me to his quadrant of urgency. How important is it? And how urgent is it? If it is very important and very urgent, you screwed up. You let something get urgent. It's an emergency. You're going to have to fix it now, and it's going to be real expensive. This is an unnecessary expense. It's a waste of your time. It's reactionary. You're losing a lot of productive time. We need to find our focus time and our effort in the high importance but low urgency. These are the highest ROI, the ones that add the most value. We should be spending all of our time outside of the emergencies, which we have no choice in that. Next, if it's urgent but not important, stop doing it. Stop. either say no or delegate it. And I want a lot of you to get better at saying no or delegating. If it's not important, we should not be doing it. And the worst of all, if it's not urgent and it's not important, yeah, these things may be fun. If you want to do them for your own value, that's fine. But these are going to be time wasters and money wasters. This is basically you're using your free time to do it because it's not adding a lot of value. We're not going to be able to change our enterprise. We're not going to be able to change our organization and our culture. So we have to start by changing ourselves to work better within that. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to, on the side, or if you want to share it in chat, what is one thing you really want to accomplish? It could be personal, it could be work related, it could be just getting to the end of today, it could be, whatever it is. What is one thing that you really want to accomplish in life? And someone wants to do the IIBA AAC. Excellent. When you have that item, I want you to now break it down into its critical steps. Don't try and complete that one thing all at once. What are those things that have to be done for you to be successful? And then I want you to start scheduling and getting one of these things done for yourself every day or every week. I always try and complete one task, one thing that's meaningful for me, whether it's fun, whether it's just something like, for me, I had a whole stack of bills I needed to pay. I got that done during my lunch break today, found one of them was really close to due, so it was really good. I found that. But I always do one thing every day so I have a quick win. I have something I can feel good about. Next, we're going to have to focus more on our mental health. If you're pushing so hard that you're starting to burn out, you're getting stressed, you're being irritable, you're not helping anyone, you're not doing your best work, you're making careless mistakes, and there's a time when you just need to stop and recover. I know, and I've been walking this over the last couple of weeks, I am walking dangerously close to that fall off the cliff line. And I've had to stop working when I had really important stuff to get done because I had just reached that point where I was like, I need to take a break. I should not put in another hour or two. I need to take a break. It put me behind, but it kept me sane. And one area that I want you to consider is to stop letting social media control you. Instead of always being on social media, I want you to time box it. Do you spend the first 5 minutes of every hour or the last 5 minutes of every hour? I do about an hour at night. After I'm done, I'm sitting back and relaxing after I've eaten, and I'll hop on and I'll play on social media a little bit. I will designate 15 minutes during the day to hop on LinkedIn and catch up with messages and all that stuff and do networking to build my networking. And as Vic says, my net worth. And I want you to pick a theme for these time boxes. Are you going for fun? Are you going to learn? Are you focusing in on a certain type of social media? But give it a theme so that you can really focus. And Grace, we have got to spend some time together because I think we're cut from a very common cloth. There are browser extensions and apps that will help you time box. If you need to, even if you're getting something done, time box small first and find what you're capable of doing. Find how much focus you're capable of and just start there. And I want you to please stop feeding the trolls. Stop encouraging, stop trying to fight, stop trying to influence people online. I still feed the trolls sometimes. I'm bad about it because I want my friends to know where they're wrong and mistaken. There's key issues, social issues, political issues that I care a lot about, and I want them to see my perspective. But posting articles and videos, like I still do to Facebook, isn't the way to get it done. It's just not the right forum for that. I need to find a way of doing that in the podcast instead. You're not doing this alone. You've met fantastic people this week. I want you to phone a friend. Like I mentioned earlier, I met Stacy after she contacted me after I did a virtual presentation. And now we've been meeting every month, and she's just such an inspiration. She is such a powerful woman, and I want to see her out doing keynotes one day. Through her, I met Vic and Shane, and you got to hear them yesterday, and you know why I'm so excited about them. And I love doing things together with them and helping them out any way I can because they're just fabulous. The other people you've seen presenting through Amy have become close friends, and I know I can always call them. So your network is there because they all want to help you. They'll help you with tips or templates. They may have something ready. They may be just a good sounding board for some of your ideas or just someone to vent to. I actually have been swapping messages with someone this week who's about to make a career shift, and I happen to have some tricks, some tools, some insights because I've been through that a lot more than they have because I can't keep a job, but I've been able to help give them a different perspective, a different way of evaluating, a different way of looking at it. And we'll know over the next couple weeks or couple months if that advice is great or I owe her a pint because I gave her bad advice. Now I want to close out and move to the question. I want to close out with one more thing and move. And the quote you see here is actually something that I got from Vic and Shane's Purpose Addicts podcast. I was listening to it a little while ago and got to meet through them, Dr. Clark Hudson, wonderful woman. And she had this quote during their discussion, just rolled off. And what it really comes down to is, you need to do you, boo. Be who you are. Be the person you are. How much of your day are you really harnessing your superpowers? Are you doing those things that really matter most? Because this is your journey. You're the only one who can take it. It's your path. It's your lighthouse. You're defining the critical steps of where you want to go and what you want to achieve. You need to play to your strengths. Make the game lopsided in your favor. Do what you do best. Change tasks into the ways that you work best. And everything else, I want you to outsource. Everything that doesn't play to your strengths, I want you to find a way of getting someone else to do it. When I was starting up and leading a delivery organization for a large bank, we had tremendous requirements on project management, governance, and finance. I suck at all of those. I can do great data analysis, but the minute you put a dollar sign in front of a number, my brain shuts off. But I had a project manager on my team who wanted to move into my position eventually. And I worked with him and he took over those aspects. He worked on the financials. He worked on the modeling. He coached the other project managers and led that. And within 2 months, we went from an 80% variance of forecasted hours and forecasted spend to reality to less than 3% under his guidance. I learned from him how to do it. He did it and learned how to move in. So we're going to hit the questions, but I want to leave you with hopefully one just last powerful perspective. You have these glasses, these parts of your life, parts of these days, parts of every hour that you get to pick what you're going to fill with. The more garbage water you can get out of those glasses, the more you can fill them with what's important to you. How are you going to make the most, and how are you going to fill each of those moments? So what I want to do now is pop in and answer some of the questions. Coach, any pop to mind that we want to hit first?
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button. So most recently, Jared asked, have you read the 4-Hour Work Week?
I have heard of it, but I can't say that I know about it. I will say that when you look at the higher you go in your career, the higher you go in an organization, the time where you're actually using your superpowers and making a huge difference decreases. You have to work harder to find those moments that you're filling the glass, filling the organizations with your superpower and helping leading them in the right way. So it's definitely a book that I need to check out.
Awesome. Another question. Christina asked this question when you were talking about unread emails. She said, how do you get past seeing the unread numbers? She's a bit crazy about seeing the unread or a bubble with numbers.
Yeah. It is amazing to me how many people in project management, in business analysis, who have really smart analytical brains also have a little touch of OCD. So I actually had to go in, select all, and mark them unread because my filters mark them red. So everything that goes into those folders is marked red, so it never shows up. I never see the unread messages. Occasionally, when filters mess up and things get in or I drag things over, I will go in and select all, mark as red, and hide those numbers. I don't want to see something that's a flashing red light that I might need to worry about. Yeah. So yeah, filter, hide it. You can set up auto responses for certain types of messages. So you can basically say, hey, I saw you sent me a message. If this doesn't fit into one of these categories, please contact me directly, and try and get rid of the garbage. Anything outside of our domain, I filter into a folder and don't look at it. I use it as a different focus time. I have internal versus external.
Got it.
Yep. Get as much as you can out of the inbox. Right, Steve?
Grace asked the question, do you set a time box for ad hoc meetings? I'm thinking of how to be both available and protect my time. Devs often ask questions and I hop on a meet to work with them.
Absolutely. So we don't want a solution in our stand-up, but what if you had a open office hours, a time block every day or every week that is a product review, a ask me anything session, a drop-in session? Absolutely set those on the calendar and try and keep them intact, and be clear if you have to delete them, but then just handle anything that's coming up. So absolutely, I'd love those type of drop-in events. I run a team therapy group for our team every Monday. It's a drop-in session to share tips, tricks, or for people to just vent or try and get information. And it's just a drop-in hour every Monday right after what used to be our team meeting until our team meeting got moved. If you're a product owner or moving into that space, blocking off times to work with your different product teams, your stakeholder group, your delivery teams, absolutely. Block out an hour or two where you can use it for clarifications. All that stuff that's rooting your prioritization or your stand-ups, set some time and dedicate and focus everybody in on that task.
If you don't mind, one way that I've seen a lot of managers do, or leaders that I've worked with as well as me, some people work off to-do lists, and they're great because they identify what to do, but they don't rank them. I think ranking them is important. I use a lettering system, A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D, E, which helps me to understand what needs to get done that absolute day versus what needs to get done by the end of the week versus what I can delegate versus what actually needs to get eliminated because it was probably busy work.
Yep, I love it. And I think that's probably a great place for us to close out and turn it back to the host. If everything is a priority, nothing is. So when we do top priority, we're basically asking people to make everything urgent. Instead, use Vic's method where you're abstracting it a little bit into letters. Or, normally we teach the Moscow method. Must have, should have, could have, or won't have. And if you rank in order, like with product, with backlog, these are the things that have to be there. These are the things that are really important and valuable, but I could get by without them. If we've got time, these are the things I'm going to do. And all of those extra emails, all of those silly tasks, we're going to get rid of. Now, I know that there's a lot of questions. There may be some other tips. I will be publishing a copy of this with an appendix that has some additional tips and tricks in it that I, following my own advice, streamline this into what I thought was going to be the most valuable for you. I will have that posted and available this weekend on my site, and for available, if possible, on the conference website. Also, this is recorded so that you'll be able to go back. I really appreciate everyone taking time out at the end of these fabulous 2 days. A big thank you to Coach Vic. Congratulations on an awesome keynote. I appreciate his help with the moderation today, and to all the staff behind the scenes who made this happen. Thank you so much. I'll turn it back over to you all.
Hans, on behalf of everyone in this room today, thank you so much. A big round of virtual applause out there for Hans. Knocked it out of the park again, as always. Such tangible, great, practical information. I've been taking notes and not realizing that it's being recorded. So I will certainly be watching it again. We will definitely post it on the website for everybody. And again, they can go and find it at your site as well. People are saying, you can't hear me, but I'm applauding. Great job, Hans, as always. Great job. Thank you. Thank you so much, my friend. And everybody, as we've been saying, and I'm sure you're so sick of hearing me say this now, connection, connection, connection. Please keep in touch with the people that you've met here over the past 2 days, the speakers, the people you've met in the networking room. Forging these great relationships is key to these events. The education is fantastic. We love that, but it's the relationships that you make that are the real game changers. So I hope you'll take advantage of that. And speaking of that, the networking room is still open. So if you want to pop in there after, please feel free. I know a few people are in there right now, so you can go and join the conversation and keep the conversation going, not just during the time of the conference, but afterwards. Please stay connected. And we have a lot of platforms for you to do that, be it on LinkedIn. We have Twitter groups, we have Facebook groups. So yeah, join the party because we really want you there. These are truly your events and we love your feedback. We want to create content that's really pertinent to you and your teams. So always feel free to contact me at any time with any ideas or suggestions you have. And please take a moment to fill out your evaluations as well. For those of you who are joining us tomorrow, your workshops start at 9 a.m. If you, for any reason, want to jump workshops, saw a speaker you really liked, want to go sit in that, more than welcome to do it. Just let us know and we'll make the change. I'd like to also take a moment to thank all of our fantastic moderators over the past 2 days. They've done an excellent job. Thank you very much. Thank you to the team behind the scenes who have been making this roll out so smoothly. Thank you to all the speakers. Especially thank you to Hans for jumping in and saving me today. Thank you very much for that. And most of all, thank you to all of you for being here. I really wish we could all be together in person, and we will be soon, sooner than later, I hope. But our sincere gratitude to you for joining us at this virtual event. Just thanks. My name is Amy Riddell. Again, if you ever have any questions, comments, please email me directly on behalf of the team at McGregor Communications. It's been a pleasure hosting you. We hope you had as much fun here as we did. We're going over to the networking room now, so we hope to see you there. Hans, once again, thanks so much. Vic, thanks for moderating the questions, and everybody have a great evening.